My name is Sharon Comden, and I live at 59045 Seven Devils Road, and our home would be half mile from Kimberly Park.
Which one?
Half mile from Kimberly Park.
Oh, less.
Yeah, less than half a mile from the Kimberly Park lease. When I looked at this lease, I've negotiated a number of high-dollar contracts in my career, and what I've learned from that experience is that a bad contract or a contract that has terms that are not nailed down can be a very hard contract to live with, and you end up paying for those hasty errors or oversights, or you miss a detail many times over as you see the contract roll out. I also reviewed the contract negotiations for one of the companies that a number of the ORC management have been involved in, and that in fact was part of the experience. Their attorneys were constantly renegotiating, quibbling, fighting, saying that term doesn't mean what we thought it meant, and so they had the ball in the air for years on some of those issues. So a couple of things that came out today in the discussion. First of all, we know that ORC has substantial investors. There's a hedge fund in Seattle that's very much involved with them, and it seems to me kind of odd that Bob Main cannot get information about what is the percentage of nothing or the percentage of production, any kind of value on the anticipated production of that land, when other investors obviously have put a lot of money up based on somebody's projections. So there's something that doesn't connect when the county can't get figures that are credible, and yet other investors will put up $90 million to build a plant, but not know what they can expect to get out of it. Just common sense, the county is going to risk timber production, which is a sustainable industry. It comes in year after year. The marketability may go up, it may go down, but it's very predictable. In return, what it's going to get is a percentage of an unknown figure. It's got some very small payments, a few dollars per acre, 8,000 here, 5,000 there. It depends on which part of the lease you look at. But in return, they're going to potentially lose the predictable stream of income from the forest products. And it is very predictable, and in these times, these economic times, we need predictable income. So I would say that maybe we're putting the cart before the horse. We're allowing an organization that has unproven to collateralize our assets, meaning that they're going to sell this note to the bank. They're going to use this lease, which is a great deal of the discussion was about how do you make it easy for them to collateralize the assets of this lease so that the bank in Australia or South Africa or wherever it is will be able to buy and sell it with limited controls by the county. And so the county is at risk. I mean, just plain common sense, we're at risk. They're going to get money for this lease. They're going to sell it to somebody if they don't maintain it themselves. And they're building that into the lease. And what we really need is time to see what they actually can produce, so that you can get some real audible numbers from the first 5 years of production or 3 years of production, whatever they've predicted up to 6 years of production from their current Weyerhaeuser leases, and they've got more with the Coquille Indians. And then you've got the good bargaining chips because you know what you're bargaining for. So, end of points. It's a bad deal.
I'm Bob Fischer, Bandon. I have some concerns that I didn't hear mentioned here today. The first one being archaeology. The site may very well contain Native American archaeology artifacts, perhaps graves. They should be protected. I'm concerned about the protection of streams. We have coho salmon and other fish that need to be protected, particularly the coho. We haven't heard anything about cleanup after the mining is done. I think that needs to be a consideration. We haven't heard anything about reforestation afterwards. We haven't heard anything about well water protection. Those are my concerns. With one other, the other concern is that Kevin Stufflebeam left at 4:55, and I'm wondering how it would be possible for him to vote without hearing the concerns of citizens. Thank you very much.
Thank you. John Baxter, Bandon, Oregon. I've heard lots of comments tonight, so I only have one question. Section 3.5K of the lease specifically states that a covenant of diligent development is not expressed or implied. I would interpret this to mean that ORC does not have to produce or do any particular activity to be in compliance with this lease, and I would ask if my understanding of this phrase is correct. 3.5K.
Okay. If you'd like me to respond, Commissioner.
Yes, I would.
Normally, in these leases, there's a requirement that due diligence, they do as much manufacturing as possible, because the idea is that the lessor is only going to make money if there's production. We put substantial financial payments in here that said, if you don't mind, you pay us. And
yes, sir. So that turns us into a surface use lease instead of a mining lease.
To a certain extent, yes.
Yes, and I, as a citizen of Coos County, I don't believe we want to just lease the surface rights to these companies. I believe we want to lease the mineral rights, and we want the royalties from the minerals. This phrase negates all of the royalty income because it doesn't require them to mine a thing.
And that's a choice you make in terms of what is the balance. This lease has some special provisions in it because of the disputed mineral ownership, and so
it's very common for counties to lease property they do not own.
Let me finish. The point is, this lease is designed to continue in the event the courts decide we don't own those minerals. So there's a lot of surface provisions in here you would not find in a normal lease. But secondly, we are trying to bridge that and give both the surface use monies as well as royalty monies. So in the event we are found to own those minerals, which we think we will be, we're going to get the maximum royalties as well. So we're trying to do both, and to say it's one or the other is not correct.
Thank you, Councilor, but I would think that if we wanted to lease surface rights to people that held mineral rights, we'd be in a much better condition at that point than we are trying to do everything at once. Thank you for staying this evening. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you. Thank you.